Today, we are going to talk about a story of when Times Square was in decline, when Times Square was decrepit, when Times Square was seedy, when 42nd Street was not fun and games and come on along and listen to the lullaby of Broadway. It was dark. It was dingy. It was gross. In comes Michael Eisner, CEO of Disney in the 90s, to save the day. Let's get into it. This is Curtain Calls with Jared Goldsmith. It almost surprises me that Disney didn't look into Broadway in the 50s or 60s when Walt was really building his company. I guess he was more focused on Disneyland and Disney World, but it feels like Walt Disney could have turned one of his movies like Snow White or The Parent Trap into a Disney musical earlier. I wonder what The Parent Trap would have looked like as a Disney musical in the 60s when it came out.
Who is this girl who looks just like me? She's British, kinda skittish, couldn't be more boring. Who is this girl, a fright to be seen, who hails from California and is so annoying? Let's teach her a lesson, pull a prank on her bung. She took a whack at me at fencing and that really stung. Oh, who does she think she is? Oh, who is this girl? You are nothing like me. Don't you see the resemblance? Resemblance? Honey, don't even. Your eyes are too close and your ears stick out. Your teeth are quite crooked without a doubt. You're intimidated that you finally met your clone. The real difference between us is I have class and you don't. Why, yada. My eyes are too close and my ears stick out. Who did a magic wand to her from across the pond? Oh, who is this girl? Who knows how to fence? I'll wear percussion poker like my only defense. Oh, why are you here at Camp Walton? You are ruining my world. Oh, who is this girl? You are nothing like me.
By the late 20th century, around 1985, Times Square is in decline. It is plagued with adult entertainment and urban decay. The glory of what was once Times Square is not what it was as it was in the early 20th century. New York City officials sought to revive the area, making it more sought after for tourists and families. Michael Eisner, then the CEO of Disney, has a vision to rejuvenate all of Times Square by placing Disney right in the middle of it. People balked. Disney in the middle of Times Square, where the hookers are? Ugh, say no more. People laughed. And who was laughing last? Michael Eisner believed that creating high-quality entertainment and placing it right in the middle of Times Square was exactly what Disney needed and what New York City needed. This would help clean up Times Square and its reputation. For those of you who don't know, Michael Eisner was responsible for a lot of Disney's Renaissance. Beauty and the Beast, The Little Mermaid, The Lion King, a lot of the Disney hits. Michael Eisner was also responsible for some of Disney's weirder decisions. Disneyland Paris. But, hey, still running today. The Disneyland Handwich. I do believe someone has a Handwich video on YouTube. This was a really interesting one. It's like a tuna ice cream cone or something. Kind of odd. But Eisner, with Giuliani, comes into New York City, and he takes a look at the New Amsterdam Theater. It was once the home of the Ziegfeld Follies. If you're familiar with Funny Girl, Mr. Ziegfeld, or Drowsy Chaperone, Mr. Feldzig. They used to do very elaborate shows at this theater. It's historic. In the height of its day, people used to go to the New Amsterdam Theater in the teens for late-night shows, and not Flophouse adult late-night shows, just late-night shows where they would get a drink and they would go to a rooftop theater that was actually located at the top of this theater. Since the early 1900s, the New Amsterdam Theater becomes decrepit. It becomes a movie house, and it's only showing adult films. Eventually, it's pretty vacant. It was declared a New York City landmark, but it was falling apart. There was water all over the place. There were bats flying through the place. In comes Michael Eisner. He sees the potential beauty of the theater. He looks at the original architecture, which has a sort of Garden of Eden theme to it. It really does, if you take a look. There's animals and fruit all over the walls, and he says, we're going to restore this theater. And in 2 years, they restore the theater and put Disney on Broadway. Disney actually signs a 99-year lease at the New Amsterdam Theater. In 1994, Disney opens its first Broadway musical ever, Beauty and the Beast, based off of the hit film, which only premiered 3 years prior. Beauty and the Beast was a hit. It opened at the Palace Theater in 1994 before eventually moving to the Lunt-Fontanne Theater several years later. Lion King, they wanted to make a real hit as well, and Lion King, they were able to make a critical hit. At first, they thought, maybe we just have a man running around in a lion suit, and Julie Taymor, you remember her from our last Spider-Man episode, said, no. We don't need a lion suit. We can use puppets, the way we've been using puppets in theater for centuries. We can use masks, and we can tell the story that way. Trust the audience. So The Lion King opens at the New Amsterdam Theater in 1997. to massive acclaim, then going on to become the most successful live theatrical show of all time. Literally, The Lion King is the most successful piece of art ever, running over 25 years on Broadway. In 2006, it moved to the Minskoff Theater, where it's currently been playing for years and years. The Lion King, just as an entity, became a cultural phenomenon, not with just the movie, but also with the Broadway show, spawning Simba's Pride, spawning Lion King live action in 2019, spawning Mufasa Lion King, whatever that is. If I were a character in Lion King, I would be baby Simba. Roar! Roar! That's probably not true. I would probably be Timon or Pumbaa. Oh my god, I had a dream the other night that I was playing Timon in The Lion King, and I was wearing the green makeup, and I was using the thing. I did have an audition once for The Lion King on Broadway, and then they rescinded the audition because the actor decided to stay in the show. I can only imagine that's the reason, because I've seen The Lion King like 2 or 3 times on Broadway, and it's been the same actor in that track. Because once you get those jobs, you never give them up. Why would you give that up? Where else are you going? So the New Amsterdam Theater, as you may or may not know, it housed The Lion King. Lion King moved to the Minskoff. They opened Mary Poppins at the New Amsterdam Theater. I did audition for Mary Poppins when I was a youngster, and they closed Mary Poppins just to open Aladdin. Disney really had a chokehold on Broadway for a minute. Disney opened a lot of good Broadway shows. I think Beauty and the Beast and Lion King proved that Disney was really good with Broadway. Especially all those musicals. I mean, Disney was able to open Aida, which played at the Palace after they moved Beauty and the Beast. Disney opened Tarzan at the Richard Rodgers Theater. We don't talk about Tarzan for some reason. It didn't run that long. Across the street, they opened The Little Mermaid at the Lunt after Beauty and the Beast closed. We don't really talk about Little Mermaid as much either. It didn't quite have as much buzz that Beauty and the Beast did. And after Little Mermaid, we have Newsies. Newsies was a big smash. Starts at Paper Mill in New Jersey, then moves over to the Nederlander Theater in 2012. Runs for about 2 years, then they take the whole production on tour. Been a big regional sellout, been a big high school sellout. Everyone loves Newsies. Real cult following that they took to Broadway. So there was actually a project in the 90s called New 42nd Street, literally to make 42nd Street new and improved. One of these mini projects within this larger project was actually moving the AMC in Times Square. I believe it's called AMC Empire 25. They moved it down the block from the east side of the street further to the west side of the street. They literally dragged it with a crane. We have a video right here of the theater, the entire theater just being moved and pulled, and like on SpongeBob, like, we're gonna take the theater and push it somewhere else. Push! Push! I'm gonna need a drink of water after that. Where else are we? Other projects included merging the Ford Center for the Performing Arts into 2 theaters. Remember, we talked about this in the last video. The Lyric Theater. It's now called the Lyric Theater. It was opened as the Ford Center for the Performing Arts. The Ford Center for the Performing Arts. Ford Center for the Performing Arts. Wow, that is a tongue twister. Say that 10 times fast. Maybe the Theater Kid Warm-Up would do that. Theater Kid Warm-Up, let's roll the clip. Ford Center for the Performing Arts, 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 Ford Center for the Performing Arts. Jeez, that is really tough to say. Wow. What were some other projects? I think that's when New 42 Studios opened, that there were lots of Broadway shows that would rehearse there. We rehearsed there for the Dear Evan Hansen tour when I was doing it, New 42nd Street Studios. There was also a Disney store that opened next to the New Amsterdam Theater when it reopened, and there was a giant McDonald's that they opened there with a giant marquee. That McDonald's has since closed during COVID. It was a 4-story McDonald's. Times Square was really in shambles, though. 5 theaters were torn down to erect the Marriott Marquis Hotel, which is where Stranger Things: The First Shadow will be opening in 2025. Many shows have opened at this Marquis Theater since 1982, and one might argue, there was a big movement in the theater community to save all these theaters. 5 theaters were torn down to make way for the Marriott Marquis Hotel and Broadway Theater. So we lost 5 theaters in exchange for 1 big hotel and 1 theater. We lost the Bijou Theater, we lost the Astor Theater, we lost the original Helen Hayes Theater, we lost the Gaiety Theater, we lost the Morosco Theater. Really sad. But one might argue that if we didn't tear down these decrepit theaters at the time, we might not have revitalized Times Square. So it's kind of a weigh and measure. I like it when we're able to tear down things and somehow get something back. Like, for example, across the street from the Winter Garden Theater is the Paramount Plaza. The Paramount Plaza tore down a movie house, which was the first movie house that actually screened The Wizard of Oz in New York City in 1939. But in Paramount Plaza, we now have the Gershwin Theater, which plays Wicked. So, in a way, it's an homage to what once was. We tear everything down in New York City. Don't even get me started. Anything in America, we just tear it down. We have no respect for old architecture or anything like that. I really digress, don't I? In 1995, just 2 years into Mayor Giuliani's mayorship, he enforced zoning laws that actually prohibited any sex-oriented businesses, massage parlors, bookshops, theaters. It was a law saying we gotta clean up the sex stuff. Keep it private, keep it behind closed doors. We can't see it. We don't want our family seeing it. We don't want our kids seeing it. So in a way, Giuliani really helped clean up Times Square with Michael Eisner. Every prior effort to cleaning up Times Square was a violation of the First Amendment. But however late Giuliani came into the game, he used these zoning laws to clean up the place. Really juicy stuff, eh? Ultimately, Disney's presence in Times Square encouraged confidence that Times Square could be revitalized and could be rebuilt and could attract tourists and families. I mean, look at it now. There was a giant Toys R Us at one point. There's giant Elmos and Disney characters not licensed by Disney Theatrics running around and taking pictures. In a way, it's a theme park for the last 20 to 25 years, and in a way that feels safer than what it once was. Perhaps it's less interesting to some, depending on who you ask, but it's all a part of the history, isn't it? And the transformation of the New Amsterdam Theater into a glorious Broadway theater that it once was actually proved confidence that Times Square could be saved, that the theater district could be saved. This shift was also part of a larger public-private ownership. It included policing, tax incentives, etc. Point being, Disney, along with Michael Eisner, really provided some hope that Times Square could be a large tourist destination that we all would want to go to. It actually became a global destination for all entertainment, which is what we talk about here on this channel. Entertainment. In conclusion, Disney hit on Broadway. Disney always should have been on Broadway. But they started in 1994 with Beauty and the Beast, and who'd have thunk it would take them so long, but they did it anyway, and that's the play. Drop a comment below. Are you more interested in seeing Disney's revitalized version of Times Square? Would you rather see it in that sketchy midsection in 1985? Would you rather go back to 1913 when it was playing Florenz Ziegfeld Follies? Drop a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe to Curtain Calls with Jared right here. Follow us on Instagram, find us on Facebook, or wherever you consume your culture and media now. And that is the end of this episode.
Curtain calls.